Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we have a very special episode as we welcome back our friend Tony Savaggio, who has been kicking down doors and watching movies that aren't even out yet. This week we have yet another Cat People film, Cat People 1982, from director Paul Schrader. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So, warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castlebridge Media. With me from Austin is Tony Savaggio, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy, and welcome back. It's good to have you back.
Thanks.
And also in Denver, right upstairs from the Little Blue Studio where I'm recording right now, color commentary from the one and only Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello and welcome back, Tony. We've missed you.
Oh, I've missed everyone as well. I was really sad because I really liked Candyman movies and just
I know.
everything, things are just weird. I keep coming back to that. Like, arrange things, and I don't know. Time is nebulous now. We're all experiencing it, but it is really good to be back. Although I was sad that I couldn't join the Candyman discussions because there's a lot.
One
of
thing
really
about the
awesome stuff
Candyman,
about.
those movies, the hilarious thing about those movies is that when they're really, really good, they are amazing art films that live forever. But when they get super bad, they're super fun to discuss as well. So I mean,
Right,
basically,
right.
there should have been like 3 or 4 more
When they
so
were
that you
good,
could.
they were really good, really, really good. But when they were bad, they were awful.
There
They
you
were
go.
better. I would go for this one. So, okay, but this movie blows those out of the water. This movie is Cat People 1982. So, Cat People is a 1982 American erotic horror film directed by Paul Schrader. I mean, none other than Paul Schrader, director of Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, Last Temptation of Christ. Paul Schrader, he made one of the Exorcist movies, for heaven's sake. So, yeah, that guy. And starring Nastassja Kinski and Malcolm McDowell and John Hurd and Lana Lang herself, Annette O'Toole. It's a remake of the 1942 film that we covered just about a month ago. And we've got music from Giorgio Moroder, and we've got a theme song from David Bowie and executive producer Jerry Bruckheimer. This thing has more names than a law firm. This is the most loaded up remake I've ever seen, and I'm so excited to discuss this because when I was a kid, I don't think I was allowed to see this movie when I was 10 years old, but it was a big deal. So, okay, let's get our opening thoughts on Cat People 1982. We'll go Julia, Tony, and then I'll get us started in the discussion. Julia, was Cat People 1982 as just enervating an experience as it was for me?
Well, first of all, I have to go back and say that what I was quoting earlier, I quoted and misquoted. It's when she was good, she was really, really good, but when she was bad, she was horrid because it rhymes with the little curl on her forehead. Anyway,
Yes.
okay. The Cat People 1982. I thought that it was a good film. I really enjoyed watching it. I really actually preferred the original one, because it was just stylistically so beautiful and just the black and white and the high contrast and the shadows. But I did enjoy this. The cast is great. I mean, it's a really great cast. It definitely has moments, here or there where I'm just like, really? But for the most part, I think it's a fun ride, and I really like the main. I love Nastassja Kinski's performance. I love John Hurd's performance. Malcolm McDowell. They're all really strong performances. So I think there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about in this movie.
Cool. Tony, what are your opening thoughts?
So I had not seen this in a long time. And I have to admit, when the credits roll, all those credits you're talking about solidified as one of the most aggressively 80s
Yes.
centric movies you could possibly. I mean, just the Bowie song that starts it, knowing that Moroder is going to be a part of this, which I actually dig the score, but
Yeah.
it's a very, this is one of those, hey, if you want to get 80s sounds in your movie, watch this and pick that out as
That's
far
true.
as what's going on there.
Bonus points if you can get Bowie.
Right. But I don't know, as an adult and not watching it because it had all the check boxes for like if you stay up late and hope your parents don't see what you're watching.
FFN, because it has
Yeah,
lots of
all of it,
FFN.
like
Yeah.
yeah, like adult situations and nudity.
Yeah.
I still find it. There's so many choices that I found myself going, but why? Like why take in the remake? Like it's kind of like, well, you know what this Cat People movie needs is to get people in the theaters is a lot of nudity and some incest. Really, let's just shove
Exactly.
some incest in there.
Exactly.
And there's some interesting things that there's a lot of interesting concepts, and the cast is great, and they're doing everything, like set in New Orleans. Like, wow, that's kind of a neat way
Yeah.
to do this. I guess it makes sense when you have the original, which takes place, oh well, you're close to a zoo, to change them from like a firm to be zookeepers. That's a really interesting choice. I don't know there, but it's just so strange, and a lot of the eroticism of the 80s, I think, I'm not sure if it still holds the same sway that it might have when I was younger, and you didn't have the internet. You could there as much nudity as you want now if you so choose.
Well, and I threw a fit. I mean, well, first of all, we threw a fit on the podcast, I think last time, Jamie and I both. And then I threw a fit again watching this movie about all the gratuitous nudity, just how unnecessary it is, how like demeaning it is. The fact that I read to Jason a thing about how many actresses regret having done nude scenes, even if they didn't regret showing their bodies. After the fact, the way fans treat them and the way people just objectify them constantly is like they regret doing it. So I definitely that was one of the major things where I was just like, why is she topless in the pool? Why? That's totally unnecessary. I was just like going crazy.
Rain was half watching it with me, and she was, I could hear her eyes rolling at certain points, or
exactly.
just oh look, yeah, this person's a prostitute, but their clothes are really apt to fall apart, and just there's a lot.
I
and
did think it was
like there's a certain sensuality. Also, they do things like, well, we're gonna go catch crabs in the bayou, but you're gonna wear booty shorts with the waders, so they look more like thigh-high boots.
Underwear.
That was pretty
Yeah.
absurd.
And
I
just,
have to
like
admit,
random, like, but
Exactly.
that's again like looking at this, and hey, if somebody's out there listening goes, no, I still find this to be an erotic masterpiece, cool in the gang. I mean, you do you, but I found it, like I said, just contextually, it's a way different than when I was younger. And again, like, cable was whoa, this is, even if it wasn't a great movie, like it became a big event because cable was the way you saw nudity that you
well, it's a super good point. I mean, because you at the time, there wasn't like internet porn and stuff like that. So if you wanted to see topless women and stuff like that, that was in the movies. And so if a movie was rated R,
but
it
that's
would
the
often
difference
have...
between how I watch and how you watch it is I don't care whether everybody wants to see naked women. That's not the motivating factor.
Right.
The motivating factor to me is, what are these women, these actors going through? Like,
Okay,
are they being pressured into doing this, and how are they treated afterwards? So the fact that oh well, now there's more nudity available, so we don't need it in the movies. That's not a motivating thing for me.
I just found it. What I found fascinating is just how I look at an erotic horror movie from the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't anticipate like thinking about it differently in this way, and I think that's
can I draw a distinction though?
Change.
I think there's a difference. I agree with Julia about, like, it's a lot of it's silly and absurd, because when you think about, in other words, you're causing pain to actresses for a silly and absurd reason. Like, in other words, I don't really feel that way about, Nastassja Kinski walking around like a sexy naked cat in the woods. I think that's okay. I think love scenes with nudity, I think that's okay. I think making Annette O'Toole jump into the pool topless just because you need another topless scene, I think that's kind of gross. So I don't know. And that's the distinction I make. Just like the booty shorts, and hey, have Nastassja Kinski bend over towards the camera. Why? That feels.
Well,
that
I mean,
feels,
we know why, because
we know why. But my point is, it
like
feels. What's the word I'm looking for?
Exploitative.
It feels
Demeaning.
exploitative.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm all for eroticism. I'm all for I'm all for the hot fact that they invent a reason to tie her up and have sex with her at the end of this movie. That is the most bullshit thing I've ever seen, and it was hilarious, and I'm there for it. I thought that was
Well, again, I think
hilarious.
that was another point where Rain was just rolling her eyes. But like I said, I think that this isn't like, a quote unquote wokeness or anything like that about, should there be erotic films or how you approach that, but I just, as I watched it this time,
Yeah.
I paid more attention to the difference in, how I think about things now, because there's tons of movies, like, again, like I don't know. It just depends on your approach, I suppose. And also, like I said, if somebody thinks like, no, man, Catwoman, Cat People 82 is super hot still, I'm down with that. That's
Well,
hey,
I will say,
awesome. Like,
what when
I'm not
people
the
say
arbiter of
Cat People
that.
82 is hot, they definitely aren't thinking about all the brother sister lust.
Well,
They're
that's true
definitely
too.
what they
Like, yeah, I
definitely are
mean,
thinking about.
yeah,
What I mean is when somebody says that, they go, what they in their mind, what they're actually saying is, Jesus Christ, Nastassja Kinski was a force of
yes,
nature in 1982. I
yes, correct.
mean, she is something that is just sort of, I don't know.
Yeah, gorgeous woman. Absolutely.
She's
hmm
she's a beautiful woman, and there's something very unusual about her, so that she's kind of hypnotic to watch. And
hmm
so I think that's what I think if you were coming out of this movie and you were like going to dinner, and drinking your wine and talking about the movie, I think everybody walks out of it with a memory of Nastassja
Sure.
Kinski just being just incredibly watchable. I don't know what the hell happened. Nastassja Kinski doesn't have probably the career that she would hope she would have, and it may well be that she's just so rich that she doesn't care. But
And I guess also, the other part of this is,
mm,
we've seen plenty of, erotic vampire movies,
yes,
and we talk about this, but I guess what's different is this being a remake of, at least a different, if not arguably better film. Like, I prefer the original just because I like how
yeah,
the atmosphere and the feel. If I have to choose between the two, and I mean, luckily you don't have to, right? You can watch whatever the hell you want to watch.
oh,
That's
absolutely,
what's a great. That's great. We have streaming. We can do this. You're not waiting for it for cable, or if it comes back to a theater or whatever. So you can view this as many times. You can compare, contrast, whatever. But I think it's that now that, like, this is firmly this is what we're gonna do with Cat People, and the choices
yes.
therein. That's what makes the discussion interesting.
So let's talk about it a little bit. We open up. I we open up with this prehistoric time of gnarled trees and big
Very
cats and
Exorcist 2,
yeah,
in my
And that
opinion.
was pretty
crazy.
cool. That opening is pretty cool. I love the red bizarre set and the trees and the silhouettes. It looks like a painting.
And
It's really pretty neat.
and there's all this just all right off the bat. There's some weird like uber sophisticated sexual weirdo-ness going on, with this like tying up a woman to come and be mauled slash mated with by a panther,
Yeah, that
just
was weird.
weird stuff going on.
I feel like I blocked out a lot of this movie because I used to say stuff. I'm like, oh right, I forgot about that part.
And and well, I mean, nothing overtly sexual happens on screen, but you can't deny the erotic undertones of it all, and so
Sure.
Sure.
so it's so much so that when I was watching it, I was like, well, is this movie heavily inspired by The Hunger? Funny because of the David Bowie connection, but it's not, because this is before The Hunger. That blows my mind. I cannot believe that this movie, that Paul Schrader made this film without having seen The Hunger or even having it on his mind, because The Hunger has a lot of the style, the weird prehistoric psychosexual garbage,
Well, I
changing
was
up the
kind
myth,
of
all that stuff.
that New Orleans and such. I was kind of I couldn't believe that it was before 9.5 weeks. Like,
Right.
I
No,
had to
good point.
check. I was like, is this before or after? Like, I had to look.
Yeah. You maybe
But
had Body Heat before this, possibly. I'm trying to think. Let me check on the date of Body Heat. Body Heat is 1981, so that comes before this. And that's like Florida, but it's like a sweaty, mossy, overgrown New Orleansy Florida. And yes. So all I'm saying is that they have brought Paul Schrader and Alan Ormsby as the screenwriter have brought a vision to this thing that seems to have just sprung whole cloth. Like, here it is. It's it's gonna be a weird, sweaty, psychosexual thing. That they clearly know the original movie like the back of their hand. That's the other wild thing. So you take the original movie, which is, you got an engineer, played by the guy from Peyton Place, whose name is escaping me right now, and he has a gal pal that he works with, and he falls in love with mysterious and sexually repressed Irena, marries her, and then realizes that she's kind of bad news and hooks up with the gal pal instead, and Irena becomes a werepal. That's what the original movie is.
Bad news, and she won't have sex with him. So
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and in the world of the 40s, that's almost an annulment. I mean, you could almost you could probably just say,
well,
look, this
now, I
this
mean, it would still be grounds for an annulment if you didn't
right,
consummate the marriage and you expect it to. Like, it's one thing if you go into it knowing, but if you don't,
right,
if you think eventually it's going to be different, then that is grounds for annulment.
right. The marital duties are not being done, and so yeah. But anyway, this one, all those characters are here. They've just been moved around, but into all of this has been taken a whole new action figure grabbed from a whole nother playset. I don't know what the hell Alan Ormsby is thinking, except for he said this. He said, I wanted to bring in a male werepanther because I didn't want to have a situation where you have this sexually powerful woman who will need to be murdered when she starts expressing her sexuality. And so he goes, but I could get rid of that if there were two of them. Now that
But why
excuse
they
does
had to
not
be
explain.
siblings? Why they had to be siblings is the question.
Well,
Because it's one
and
thing if it's
all
like, oh, there are actually cat people and not just
right.
one cat person, but they don't have to be siblings.
Right.
Yeah,
That doesn't
because
explain
there's
why do they
also
need to bang. Right. Exactly.
there's also he and it boils down to I have needs is his uh but but there are cat people because the woman they do the
Yeah.
thing except now
Yeah.
she says,
My hermana, my sister.
yeah.
Right.
So they did that, so there's still that.
There's other cat
But
people.
it's one thing to say, I mean, obviously people, they're, religious people, black people, all kinds of people refer to others as their brothers and sisters, but it doesn't mean you're actually biologically brother and sister. But in this case, they really are. And there was no reason for it. It was completely unnecessary. Or in the alternative, they could be brother and sister and not, like you say, not bang, but it doesn't have
Right.
to be, that was,
Yeah,
the incest
because
thing was unnecessary.
Well, it's
you could,
super
right. It feels perverse in a way that I'm not kind of going along with it, because it reminds me of that sketch with Patrick Stewart on SNL where he's a guy who makes erotic cakes. He has a store that makes erotic cakes, but his
Another thing I blocked out.
right. But the thing is, nobody likes his erotic cakes because they're only erotic to him, and they're all like random and about like women peeing in the woods and stuff like that, like stuff that only he is into. And so I kind of suspect that the people who made this are like, yeah, this is hot, right? And the rest of us are like,
well, it's also
no,
No.
it's also strange because it's perhaps there's a lot of like just guys staring at
yeah,
like at all the women, and there's a lot of just
Oh,
hey
gays.
look, here's somebody jogging, and is something bad gonna happen to this woman? There's it's very
Well,
gazy in that gazy in that way.
that I
There's
can
somebody
go
on the
with.
bus,
Like,
and it's just so much of it though. You're like,
yeah.
what?
The jogging thing was actually their version of the scene where in the first movie
Absolutely.
where she's walking down. But that's one of the times when I went, the first movie was better because that was just so much more interesting because she's walking
Yes.
down the like down
it's
the
like a
hall or whatever
stone
it is.
wall kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and there's this shadows and sounds, and it's all this high contrast. And here it's just a woman jogging where, like, yeah, often you're going to be creeped out if you're jogging and you feel like there's either somebody watching you or you hear something, but it's not horror. It's just,
Well,
it's
again,
slashery.
with this, it felt like, look, I've been to New Orleans enough, and I kind of went, what part of New Orleans are you jogging in? Because that's a valid question.
Exactly. Right.
Like,
is that this zoo that they're at, this so-called New Orleans? Forgive me, but is this a real zoo?
I haven't been to the New Orleans Zoo in forever, so I would have to look it up again.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
you know what? I'll take it for granted this is a real place and it really looks like this. And maybe in 1982, because we don't know what it looks like
There's the
now.
the Audubon Zoo in New Orleans, but I don't know if that's this one. I mean, there is a zoo called the Audubon Zoo.
Well, anyway, they've got it's really interesting the way it's set up with these long walks and the big sort of outdoor iron bar enclosures and stuff like that. And there are a lot of really interesting, beautiful shots that also seem to be like direct quotations from the 1942 film. And so
Yeah,
it
that's why
just
I'm not sure, and I haven't been. I mean,
yeah.
I've been to Audubon Zoo,
I'm
but it's been years and
googling
years and
it, and
years.
it doesn't look anything like that one, which is a good
Yeah.
thing because those enclosures are horrible. Those little cages that they're in.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This
But
looks
they do mirror
very
the original.
That's
yeah,
right. That's
exactly.
right.
But I really hate that. Oh, by the way, I just have to say those panthers are gorgeous. I was
Oh yeah,
loving looking at the animals. They're so beautiful.
Yeah.
yeah.
There's this bit, and I was all of us are spoiled for it now, but I have to say there's this moment after Malcolm McDowell has picked up Arena at the airport and said, "Hey, come stay with me." And we'll talk a little bit about the cast of people who are there once Arena gets there to New Orleans. But he kind of spies on her at night because we very quickly learn that Malcolm McDowell is a werepanther who goes wandering the streets. But he does this thing where he comes into her room, and Malcolm McDowell, Tony, like you said, he's given his all because Malcolm McDowell has adopted a walk where he walks with his hips first
It's really
and reaches
strange.
out with like the balls of his feet and like carries himself forward. So there's just this, it's a weird walk. I mean, but it's very sensual and it's very cool. And it kind of reminds you of a dancer. And he does
Hmm.
this thing where he goes into Arena's room to watch her sleeping, and he soundlessly leaps up onto the footboard of the bed, which I think is the first moment that you see that he's literally supernatural, because no human could actually leap up onto a footboard that I'm aware. I mean, I don't know, maybe Baryshnikov could do it. And I was like, how did they do that? Like how, And Tony was thinking special effects or wire work. That's the way you would do it, right? True. And the
Yeah,
way
or
it was,
editing.
yeah, or editing. And the way it was done was, yes, he basically climbs up there as an actor, climbs up on it, balances, take a couple beats, and then he leaps backwards and lands on the floor.
And
And
walks
then,
backwards all the way out down the stairs and everything.
oh, really? So you got to do
Yes.
the whole thing.
Yep.
Wow. And then they just run it the other way. It's amazing.
There's so many though. I If it's effective for someone, that's cool. But I could just imagine there's certain scenes there where I could imagine just like no more cat like, just
Yeah.
like nuzzle a little bit
Exactly.
more. You're think of how your house cats work. Like
What if you lick the
because
back
just
of your
there's a
palm?
few scenes that are just like
Yeah. Well, the
and then
scene
and
where it looks
everybody's
like
like
she's gonna, where it's the scene where it looks like she's gonna actually have sex with him, and she does that cat thing where it's like she kind of, like you said, like nuzzles her head. That was like that too. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But there's a couple of scenes like that. And again, kudos to the actors who were in those scenes, just giving it like, okay, we're here, Cat People 82, we're here for this.
Yeah.
And really trying to give it their all. But some of it is so strange, and the choices that are made are strange to me. And not that all of them, like some of them are really interesting, but in trying to establish like, no, this is my version of cat people.
Yeah.
It's there. There's a lot of choices that are kind of baffling, or just their own. It's definitely its own thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. And Paul, and I can't help but think, there have been times when our analysis of stuff has gone too deep. Like there was a time when we were talking about I think it was about racism in Disney rides, and I remember we got a letter from this one black listener who was like, "You guys sound real smart, but I completely disagree with you." And so it's possible that you could be watching this thing.
that's valid. That's stuff I want to
you
I want
know,
to hear about, because
you
it's
know,
easy to overthink these things. But
it's possible somebody would be like, "Nope, I thought the booty shorts were hot. I'm down with it."
sure,
like I don't. It's hard, but it is the case that us watching it sometimes these choices we go, this is silly. It's detracting from the experience, or as some people like to say, it takes me right out of it. Although that's
I
a
know you don't like
phrase
that
that
phrase,
I've
but to me that works because it's absolutely describes what I feel when I experience that.
when you're suddenly disconnected from the storytelling because you're like, that's ridiculous. You know,
Because the out of it refers to like almost like a trance that you're in when you're watching a film. You know, you're in the
Mm,
movie, and then something happens, and you go, "Oh, now I just remember this is a movie."
I guess you're right. I guess that's true. And I'm probably disrespecting a film to a certain extent if you're like never in it, if you're like doing nothing but watching all the choices and making notes of them and thinking about it as a work to be pulled apart as opposed to a work to be sort of consumed, you
Analyze,
know.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's hard too when part of what we do is do reviews, and
Yes.
we're talking about it, so it depends on your mindset as well. I think we talked about it before, like kind of what you bring into it. Again, this is kind of my viewing of this is having really liked the atmospheric,
Well, yeah. And
how atmospheric the original is, and then seeing this and going, and even from earlier viewings, I think it's also interesting how much practical effects gore they added. And I don't even know if I wouldn't even say it's gratuitous necessarily, but just
boy,
again,
is it
that's an
shocking
interesting
though.
choice. Yeah,
Because in the zoo, you've got like I say, whereas before there was the engineering place and there was the zoo, which were the two big sets, and now we've just dumped the engineering place and everybody's just crammed into one location, really, which is the zoo.
right. Well, the zoo
And
and the house, and then New Orleans itself is the kind of,
right,
hey, we're
oh
gonna go, we're gonna use that, and again, if you're gonna add some atmosphere, New Orleans is a great place to do that.
yeah, it sure
So
is. I mean,
that's
it
fascinating.
sure is. And out on Lake Pontchartrain, where they go on a date at one point, which is a neat
Sure,
bit.
yeah.
But we started at the zoo, and so you've got John Hurd as Oliver and Annette O'Toole as his gal pal Alice, who I guess he's dating. It's hard to say.
He has
I
dated her
think
in the
it's
past because she
yeah.
says, "I thought I had seen you in love, but I guess that was just vanity." So clearly, she thought he was in love with her at some point, but I don't know if that's recent or it's been a while.
Mhm.
I thought it was closer to the original, where he's told her all the times, like, oh well, this date didn't work out, and she's like, doofus over here, kind of like
Except for that, there's
that.
one problem. Doesn't she kiss him? There's one thing where he shows up and she kind of plants a kiss on him, which you just don't do with your coworkers. At least in
Look,
my
man,
personal
whatever
experience,
happens in the zoo stays in the zoo.
I guess. And they seem to be a lot of fun. This seems to be a great place to work. You know, they're all super smart. They're all like, working with animals and arguing with John Larroquette, who's like the money man. That's why he's in a three-piece suit. And you got Ed Begley, who's this other guy who works,
Oh,
this other zoo
poor Ed
engineer,
Begley.
and
He totally.
Yeah,
he gets torn apart
Oh,
he gets his arm ripped off. Holy shit! What
well,
a
he gets
scene.
rebarred stuff and apparently dies from it, from the
Yes.
yeah.
blood
Yeah,
loss.
because he bleeds out. He's got arteries that are ripped
Oh,
out, and and
awful.
and
That was Tiger. I don't know if you guys watched Tiger. Well, you guys watched Tiger King, I think. But anyway, that actually happened to one of the real life people in
Yeah, I have
Tiger King.
not seen that.
and they did
But
not
even
die.
I mean, at the
Yeah.
beginning too, you have a prostitute who thinks, "Hey, my John's just weird. He's in the bathroom, whatever," and then gets mauled. Gets her ankle mauled and
Yes.
pushed down the stairs. But all of that stuff is very much in the let's firmly place this in a horror setting.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
just
Well
thought of
said.
something about that scene that I hadn't thought of until you said that, and because I hadn't thought of it because at the time I didn't know this about the rule. But because he doesn't kill her, he can't turn back
No,
into
that's
a
exactly
person.
it. Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
That's
So
how he
that's
that's
the
why
gets
he's
caught.
deal.
stuck as a panther the whole time. So they can still have they actually literally like she comes in, he's turned
Yep.
into a panther. But who did he have sex with to turn into a panther? Didn't he have to have sex first to turn into the panther and then that's what's confusing is that he's already a panther when she gets there. And
Okay.
so
Can
that part
somebody
of the
walk me
rule
through the way
yeah,
their
because
magic
I thought
works?
the rule was supposed to go
Yeah.
that if you have sex with a non relative,
Cat person.
then
Yeah.
you turn into a panther and you have to kill a person or something. Like you have to kill somebody. But in this case, she shows up to his room and he's already a panther, which I guess means I don't know that he maybe he just had sex on his own, or who knows what happened to make him turn into Panther. But then because he doesn't kill her or anybody else, it just grabs her ankle and she's able to
Okay,
escape.
here we
He
go.
gets stuck as a panther.
Yeah.
According
'Cause
to
he
the
can't kill anybody.
Wikipedia, mating with a human transforms a werecat
Right.
into a leopard,
Right,
and only
but why
by
did he
killing a
become?
human can it regain the human form.
Yes,
Right.
but so he became a leopard. So who knows who he had sex with? If it was
He
just
must have
if
somebody
yeah.
else, I guess.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
guess.
a previous.
And for whatever reason, he wasn't able to kill that person, and so now he gets this girl.
Yeah,
And
so
he
he
he's
had
can't
a
kill
like
her
rough night.
either. Now he's
You know.
stuck.
Part
He's had a rough night.
part Jack the Ripper now as well. He's
Yes.
because that's the thing is the people he kills are also they say are prostitutes or I think they said something about homeless people. I have to remember, but
Oh, there's some crazy
basically
stuff
people who
going
won't
on.
be missed are the
Yeah,
people he preys on as
exactly.
a
It's
were
less
leopard.
likely to get in
But
trouble.
what I dislike though is by the time they actually just give you that exposition later.
Yes, that's right.
But by the time
Yes.
they give you that, I kind of want to go, yes, up until this point we've seen a whole movie about that.
Right.
Thanks. Like why now?
They're like, in case you
A,
were
I didn't need that,
confused.
and B, and when we get to that part, I actually want to talk about that too because I thought the end felt really disjointed. And,
Yeah.
but I, but yeah, that's how that all works. That's why he gets captured as a cat.
Right,
Yes.
right.
And how he immediately,
then he's put in-
after hours, they come back and he's gone. The cat is gone.
Well, after he
and they
kills
also
Ed
leave that.
Begley,
It's also kind of interesting because they decided to also go into the kind of horror aspect of things, where when they transform, they shed goopy
Yeah, that was
horror
gross.
stuff, but back and forth. Each
Yeah, both ways.
each transformation leaves behind some kind of goopy mess.
isn't that interesting? That's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
because they
was
tear
super
themselves
nasty.
out of the a lot of this happens like quick cuts, but we don't see the whole transformation ever, and that's probably just as
Right.
well. But
Yeah,
they tear
well,
themselves
yeah.
out of the skin they're in, and then later they tear themselves out of the skin they're in yet again. I mean, and each time they leave the skin behind, and it just goes, it just melts and
Yeah, it's
and
super weird. So so somehow when he kills Ed Begley and he turns back into a person, presumably, but for whatever reason they don't have video of that. Like that's the thing that's so strange to me is that super creepy that they have video of the hotel rooms. By the way,
well,
but anyway, but
that's a
they don't see
massage
him.
parlor, so in theory,
No, yeah, okay. Anyway,
Right.
so the whatever the room is, they don't they have video of it, and so then but they never have video of him going back and forth. Like I don't understand that because the same thing in the zoo seems like after he killed Ed Begley, you would have him turning into a person and then somehow figuring out how to get out as a person.
that's a really good point. Also, we don't see, but forgive me, but we don't see how he gets out. We know that he turns back into Malcolm McDowell, and then he turns
Well, then he
back out.
probably just grabs the keys from someone. I mean, I'm sure that as a human, he's actually pretty smart about getting out of things.
Yes.
Because the zoo cage is not intended for a human not to be able to escape. It's intended for a beast. So there might be keys hanging around.
Yeah. No, good point. That does sound like part of the brief, actually.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah. So the other the we talked about the one place, which is the zoo, and it's got John Hurd and Annette O'Toole, and then the house that Malcolm McDowell is living in. He has a I don't know if it's his landlady or I don't really know exactly what the situation is with Ruby Dee, who's another person who's religious. Like, because one thing they establish is that Malcolm McDowell is a religious leader. He is a preacher occasionally at this one particular Christian church, and Ruby Dee also shares his faith. And so I don't know if it's her house or what. But when they later on establish that sometimes Malcolm McDowell captures people and chains them up in the basement until he can eat them as a panther, Ruby Dee gets arrested for having a dungeon in
Super creepy
her
too.
house. All of that's great. Although now that we're saying this stuff, like there's the dungeon with all of that and Ruby Dee, and there's a church that doesn't really come into the plot at all, except for it's one of the places that Irena looks for him. There's more plot than this movie can handle.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said,
Yeah.
there's a lot of interesting things, and there's a lot of great concepts.
Yeah.
And a lot of them get overshadowed by, hey, wouldn't it be great if we banged as a brother and sister because then we can just bang all we want.
I just really regret that that's even up. It's
oof.
It's such a huge part of the plot, and it's such a grave. Truly, it is a grave error this movie is making,
What was the error? I'm
because
sorry, I missed it because I was reading a trivia thing.
the
What did you
the
say the error
error
was?
the error is that so much of the plot is, can I convince you to have sex with me because that's the only way you can be happy. We know that that's never
Right.
ever ever going to happen, so consequently it's not even exciting. It's not exciting. It's not exciting, first of all, because we're not into it. On average, as an audience, we're not into it. Second, it's not exciting because we know that Raina's never going to go along with that, so it becomes just sort of a huge waste of time,
Well,
and
it gives you it
It's
makes him
creepy.
feel it makes him feel like a more of a villain, more of a creepy, pathetic figure.
that's true.
I think is the point. I'm
I
just looking
guess,
at
yeah.
the bit that I was reading is, and it's a good point. I guess you don't have to have sex to become a cat. You only have to have the only deal is that once you do have sex with a non-relative, then you have to kill them. But I think they can become cats or not as they want because this little bit into or either that or it's just an error because in IMDb it's saying that Paul turns into a cat right after he fights with Irena, even though he didn't have sex with her right before he's shot by Alice. Irena's able to change into a cat at the pool, when she's stalking Alice. Presumably she changed into a cat, or at least was cat-like when she jumped into the tree. So yeah, I think that they don't necessarily have to. I think it's more
Yeah,
about the
but that's
killing.
that's not even consistent because she
Yeah,
she would have to kill somebody to turn back into herself.
I guess you're right. No,
Like
it's
we just
that
hear the
that was
growls,
kind of
like
screwed up.
but she does again. But they go through like, hey, this is how it works. Like they actually spell it out.
Yeah.
But because when they have sex at closer to the end, she almost immediately turns into cat. Like that triggers it
Right.
no matter what.
Yep.
So that
Yeah, I
seems to
don't know.
be the
So yeah,
thing.
that's pretty hinky the way that they they just kind of were like,
So
whatever.
I want to mention as we go through. So John Hurd, naturally is the same Oliver character as the 1940s one. This and he's in love with her. John Hurd is at like John Hurd, by the way, is one of those actors that really, unfortunately, we lost way too young. I mean, he just died suddenly of a heart attack. He wasn't even all that old, but he was never this skinny ever again. John Hurd here is like 0% body fat, so that he can sit down on the edge of the bed. There's not a
Well,
fold in
you
his
would be too
abdomen.
if they were gonna film your ass for like
Right.
15
Yeah,
minutes.
I mean you better train up like
Yeah.
if you care, I guess.
I mean, because everybody in this movie who is like a major name in this is naked. Basically, it is basically it is a very demanding film for an actor, and I cannot imagine the pressure that these people must be under, to go, okay, just so you know, we're gonna see your ass a lot in this film. So yeah, but John Hurd, she's Irena's super disturbed by the violence she's seen at Begley and her brother, and so John Hurd says, "Come on a date with me. Let's go to Lake Pontchartrain." And he goes out to this groovy
He's got like
house.
a house out there that is his like vacation house or
Yeah,
get away from it all house.
what a great, and honestly, this is the point where the movie becomes sort of momentarily just a romance, and it's nice, hey, let's go out
Yeah.
and do some fishing and drink some wine and dance, but she won't have sex with him because she'll turn into a panther and
She
kill him,
doesn't
and
want to kill
so
him. Yeah.
Right.
so right. so so the day
She
is a
doesn't know that.
bust.
She doesn't know it yet as a rule. She just knows it kind of subconsciously because she's never had sex with people because she's always
That's
kind of
correct.
felt like there was something that was
Right.
going to happen that would be bad.
So, but while they're sleeping, she's so sort of agitated that, like you do, she goes walking naked in the woods and eats a
Eats a
rabbit.
rabbit. And then comes back and he like flips on the light and she goes, like, what did she say? Like, don't look at
She
me.
goes, "Don't look at me."
That was super funny.
That is the
And
funniest thing.
immediately though we go to kind of establishing the rules with her brother who's come
Yeah.
back from a
Yeah, I couldn't remember
kill.
where that falls actually, if it was before or
Yeah,
after that.
he comes back from a kill. So she says, "Don't look at me." We think for a second it might even be her, and he eats grody fleshy bits and does cat
Oh,
things.
So gross.
yes.
So gross.
The only kind of there's some magical stuff going on here too because she also doesn't completely get eaten by mosquitoes in
Right.
in the middle of the bayou.
Yes,
New World,
she
yeah.
would have a
But she's
chigger
magic.
covered ass if she were actually out there.
She is
Yeah.
super
Maybe
magic.
maybe her panther pheromones are like off.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, again, like this is what an awesome superpower.
Maybe they repel
Yeah.
chiggers. I mean, honestly, it's possible.
Well, it's not chiggers, it's the mosquitoes, because the chiggers
Yeah.
would be if she's like rolling around, which she's not presumably doing.
Well,
But
she's crawling.
yeah.
I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, I
But,
guess. Maybe.
but good grief. Yeah, we cut back to Malcolm McDowell, and he's taken his comforts in some woman that he picks up at the cemetery, again, like you do. But he can't perform because
She's not his relative.
she's not his sister. And I just oy.
Gross.
And so
All of it.
I know, all of it.
But I guess he does eventually perform
Yeah,
after
well,
she gets the blowjob,
she's
because
like,
she turns
"Oh,
into
I
a
need
She's
a
a
cat and kills
blowjob,
her.
yeah. So that's working.
Yeah.
And so then, for her trouble,
turns into a
he
cat.
kills her.
Yeah. Right.
And so, oh my gosh. Yeah, all
Gross.
that's great though. Seeing him like eating random pieces of flesh that are laying around, all
Ugh,
of this
disgusting.
is just
and
so
again,
bizarre.
it goes back and forth between being a really like getting into the character, and also it looks a little silly, but also he's really like, everybody's trying to, like, you can see the direction, because he does all these cat-like things where he's obviously like researched and like gotten into it, and
Watch the cat
and
like eat a piece of meat that's
yeah.
laying around. Yeah.
And
Right.
again, that's kind of why the cutaway version of the original works better in some ways.
Hmm.
But I definitely can't fault him, because he does all the stuff where the way he shakes his head and like all the stuff. I'm a cat person. At one point in time, we had 4 cats, right? Like we hang out with them all the time, like, So seeing them, watching those performances is actually like, wow, doing the absolute best with what you're given and going for it. And I think that as an actor is what you really have to do. Whether it always works, is framed in a way that makes it work right, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's its own thing. But he's anytime they're doing cat stuff, although it did occasionally make me want to just intersperse the and now we have the magical dance numbers from the new Cats movie. I kept picturing that in my head. It's like, and now, because he has that really, like, you're right, he looks like he studied dance, like he's
Right.
very, like, the way he moves is really this going for an erotic, very cat-like stance, and when he's wanting to be in that cat way,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty impressive. Like, he's really going for it.
You know who
But it
else walks
also
like that?
the silliness that, like, the part of that also, because my mind is ridiculous, made me want to have him go into song.
Yes, the Jellicle cats. Oh my god. Jellicle cat people. I want to see Jellicle cat people. That sounds
don't.
great.
That sounds like one of those like fake trailers
I know.
that somebody would make where they cut,
Jellicle cat people. Okay, Bruce Lee and Sean Connery both practiced walking on the balls of their feet. And you can see the way they walk, and they do that where their foot will extend and then land and then drag their body forward in a way that we don't normally walk all the time, but it sure looks interesting. And it's
how. Sorry, I hope that people aren't like, oh man, I didn't miss this when Tony was gone. But how crazy would it be if you decided that's what you're gonna do, like, during the pandemic, so that when you come back,
right,
like, once an office reopens, you're all of a sudden like person who walks on the balls of their feet, like you're the cat person. Like, you've spent all this time away, and people go, "Did you have something different? Like, does he?"
And you occasionally lick the back of your hand.
I'm not even saying you go full cat person, but just that would be one of those things where you would do that.
It's
and
so
you would come back
subtle
and
that
then somebody would go,
would people notice?
"What's the?"
I mean, that's
thing?"
what I'm trying to figure out. Would people notice if you always walked on the balls of your feet, or would it be a
Yes.
subtle thing?
Well, I actually, one of the things as an animator, my job is to analyze, walk cycles, and I probably notice the way people walk perhaps more than a lot of people. And so, like, I have a kind of a mental Rolodex of like, that person walks in this interesting way, or but usually we're trained to know if something's different, but not everybody really analyzes that. So you just know something's not the same, or
Which is weird,
what we think is normal. But so if you came back and you had this, like, you had developed this interesting new gait, people would go at your office would go like,
What the?
what's there's something different. And it's you like walking totally.
I mean, the walking, believe it or not,
you would have people going things like, did you like take some online dance courses when you were?
Yeah, because it's the balls of his feet, but he's also leading with his hips, like he's what do you call it? Like you're like he's a model on the platform,
runway.
you know,
Runway.
on the runway,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You think that I'd remember that?
That's it.
Yeah,
We're old. We forget things.
right. But yes, because he's leading with his hips. It's just really he's worked hard to develop this super sensual thing. But then the script is betraying him because it's sticking him with the stupidest bullshit story of all of my sensuality is pointed towards needing to bang my sister. I'm sorry, it just doesn't work. So if you were to
But
make
you know what? He does a good job with it. I mean, like when he first sniffs her at the airport, that was super creepy. You're like immediately like, why are you sniffing her? So I think he does a great job of playing this villain. Like really.
At least it wasn't full on cat sniffing.
Sure.
Which would have been amazingly weird.
Yeah.
No, it was just predatory. It wasn't cat like. Yeah.
No, I mean, when you think about it, if a lesser film, by the way, you'll rip off a movie and do a cheaper version. And what you do usually in those cases is you also go ahead and get rid of whatever was kind of hinky, so you make it more mainstream, even as you make it more exploitative. So you would go ahead and just make him not the brother. If you were doing like a Cinemax version of this, you would get rid of the brother thing, so there's not as much rule breaking, and
Yeah, it would
just
just be
make
a love triangle with
Right.
where she's kind of doesn't like it's the bad boy. It's like, being attracted to Dylan instead of
right.
Brandon,
Why don't you? It would be like 1,000 vampire stories we've seen,
Right.
where the
Yeah,
vampire's
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. The
Or you could
Twilight
play up
story,
like
yeah.
more of a serial killer angle where
Mhm.
finding out the dungeon happens way later.
Yeah.
right.
And like, I can't believe this person I mean, there's all those
So it'd
different
be like,
ways.
why can't you
would
come
do
be
that.
with me, and we'll stalk the night together, and make sweet love on the top of towers, and kill people in the park, and everything will be wondrous. Yeah, and right. But Paul Schrader's not interested in that. He's interested in something a little more transgressive.
By the way,
So,
random trivia about Paul Schrader. He and Nastassja Kinski had an affair during this, and he fell in love with her and was planning to propose to her.
really,
And then she didn't show up at the wrap party when he was going to propose to her, and she like just ghosted him for months. And then finally he found her, and she was like, "Dude, I sleep with all my directors, and it was hard with you." I'm like, oh my god, that is so cold,
wow.
so cold.
Well,
I
I
felt that
mean,
someday.
yeah. I mean, well, he shouldn't have been such a fucking idiot. I mean, Paul
No,
Schrader,
he
come
shouldn't have been
on.
sleeping with the actress, but I also
Oh
felt
no, I
bad.
don't have
I
a
also
problem with
felt bad
that.
for him.
I'm just saying
Oh.
that, Paul Schrader at that point is like, what? He's like in his 40s. She's this sex. He should have known better. He was playing
Mhm.
with fire.
I
So
mean, pretty much all guys in their 40s are gonna bang a girl that beautiful. She'll have them. I think that's not.
I think
That's
so.
pretty par for the course.
So yeah.
I like to think I perhaps won't cheat on my wife.
Well, no, maybe not. I don't
Just-
even know if I don't know. He wasn't married because he said he was going to propose to her.
And then sadly,
So
I
it's
just
random.
there's that whole power dynamic that happens.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it happens, but I'm telling you, it happens a lot.
She seems to be
Yeah,
like,
I know.
so she has magic powers. In others, is what you're telling me, is that Nastassja Kinski has like weird
She's
Venus
freaking
powers.
gorgeous. Look at her.
That
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, but lots of people are gorgeous. There's something magnetic
Yeah.
about her that is
Yeah, I guess
just
so.
super
Do you know,
duper
by the way, we were
weird.
talking about her mother? Because her father, of course, is Klaus Kinski, Nosferatu. But her
Yeah.
mother was actually in this movie. She's actually her mother at the end, like the leopard mother.
What?
That's her. Yeah, she plays her.
Wow.
Like when it's like a half person, half leopard. That's the mom. I thought that was interesting.
I have when? I'm sorry.
It's what I'm just reading it from the IMDb. I didn't go back and watch it. It
Okay.
says that her actual mother plays this like half woman, half leopard at the end. That's her mother, the leopard mother, when she has
No,
the weird fantasy sequence in the red.
That was the part, that fantasy sequence. So skipping around.
That's right. I forgot
we
about
get
that.
closer to the end. Her brother, as they have a fight, falls out the window. And she goes, "I'm
Well,
going
he
to
gets
leave
shot.
this town."
Oh,
Right.
you're talking about a different time.
Well, when he finally,
When he
they go out,
dies, because when he dies, he gets shot. Okay.
right. But he's also but they have that whole, she leaves town and is good. She has enough money to go to Richmond on Amtrak.
Yeah.
And then they have this whole sequence where also he explains the whole thing to us who already know it. And that's weird. But it's beautifully filmed. Like, it's interesting. It harkens back to the beginning, which seems like it should be the end.
Yes.
And yet, then it seems like they go, "Oh well, we can't not have all the bits from the original."
Plus,
That seems ludicrous.
It's not long enough.
And so then they just basically do a greatest hits of the original movie, because there's the jogging
thank you
scene
for
and
saying
then
that. Yeah,
but
because
it could have very well been, like, it feels like that's what was weird to me. It's again with the kind of strange choices, right? Because it seemed like they wanted that to be the end.
Yeah, John
She
Hurt
leaves
puts her on a
town,
train, and she
they
goes to
put her on a
Richmond.
train to Richmond.
Yeah.
Then she has a dream sequence where she
And she
sees
comes
her
back.
brother again, and they go back. They bookend it. It's a bookend kind of thing. Her vision, and then they're like, "Well, well, I can't have that. Like, let's have the stalking scene, and let's have the swimming scene, and then
It does seem strangely out of order,
and we
doesn't it?
couldn't also. It's not it's not a good ending unless you tie her up and have sex with her, so she turns into a panther as well.
Again, no objection to that scene. I think it's as Joe Bob Briggs would say, perfectly necessary to the plot. But
I mean, whatever. Again, like I'm not the arbiter of that, but
Right.
it's a choice. It's a 1982 erotic horror choice that you make,
right.
And why wouldn't you? I guess if you're putting that together and scripting that.
I want to, but you're right that there's I think Alan Ormsby's a great guy, but I think this really does feel out of order. It feels super silly that she gets on a train, goes to Richmond, turns around, and comes back. That makes no sense plot wise.
Well, with the bookend part, like, it's not just that, but it's the vision and the way it all flows.
Yeah.
Like, I noticed where, how much longer the movie was at that point for some reason. I don't know if I just had stopped it for a second or something, and I was like, well, like, is that a mistake? Oh no, I watched it because I watched it and it had ads.
Yeah,
I watched it on like Peacock and it had ads.
Right.
And then when it came back, you could see like how much longer the film was going to be. And I just was like, But then, like I said, it goes through this kind of greatest hits part, and it's cool to make those callbacks. By no means am I saying that those scenes aren't good. But
no, I agree.
It feels weird. It feels weird, like there was an end, and then they go, how do we? I don't know.
But that makes really no sense. I mean,
I'm not,
because you're exactly right, but that can't be how it happened. It's just poor. That's just poorly organized. It's just poorly organized.
It's a shame. Again, I hate to.
Yeah.
I'm a person who hates to say, like, hey, editor, why didn't you do this right? Like, who am I to say that? But as a viewer, it felt disjointed, because if it had ended with that and maybe a little tiny bit more, that kind of would have been okay to me, because again, it bookended it with that kind of vision sequence, and it seemed fairly complete.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. That was just weird to me.
I guess they didn't feel like we had her as a leopard, her as a cat.
They want to do an Act 3. They want to do a real, honest to God Act 3.
Yeah.
You change the setting, you go somewhere else. So you've set up this setting earlier, and so now you're going to use it for the showdown. And so everything is going to move out to and that's a much more modern thing than you had in the 40s, right? Where you're going to move all the action to like one location where you'll have the final.
But also, all of that stuff could have fit, and she could have still gotten freaked out and gone to Richmond and ended it.
Yeah.
But then in that case, though, because the end also, there's another ending part with
Yeah.
that in kind of sequence. You can't have both of them, right? That's a little bit. It feels like maybe a little bit too much. Although maybe you could have.
And it is. There are two things I want to. One thing that happens before the end, and then I want to talk about the very, very end. But there's one thing that happens before when the leopard gets shot. The Malcolm McDowell leopard gets shot. Then John Hurd goes to do an inspection of it, basically an autopsy or whatever you call it on a cat. Then he goes to cut it open, see what's inside of it and so forth. He pops it open and there's a human arm in there, like forming. So this is elements of like 1978 Body Snatchers.
That was super creepy.
Because he's like building a little Malcolm McDowell in there to grow out of him, which is just such a fascinating concept for how you would do.
And there's again cool special effects, practical effects with that,
my
and
goodness,
then it kind of melts away.
It looks
Although
great,
I will say it
doesn't
was distressing.
Oh.
I don't know how regulated the film was, but the part where they have, this big cat running around a room and attacking stuff, and when they have it on video, that made me a little distressed about,
I said the same thing.
How do you make that happen? Like that
I said the exact same thing to Jason. I was like, how are they making that cat so upset?
It didn't. Yeah. I didn't feel right. I don't know. Again, it's not stuff I should be thinking about while I'm in the middle of a movie, but this is, again, how you watch a movie and how you absorb it at one point in your life rather than another point. But right now, I was going, oh man, that's yikes. I don't know.
I'd love to get a cat wrangler to explain, how it works. I mean, they've also got, obviously, sometimes we're just looking at a cat puppet, but
sure.
But yeah, I mean, the wrangler who's like, okay, if you do this, he'll hiss and he'll swat at you. I mean, I don't know the first thing about how you would get a cat actor to do that.
But that seems like running around and smashing into things, and maybe it's just a really awesome stunt cat, and it's perfectly safe or whatever. But there's just, for some reason, a couple scenes like that just felt like, I wonder how safe things were in '82.
Yeah. I mean, it's mind-blowing, by the way, when you think about it, because 82 is literally 40 years after the first version and literally 40 years ago. Mm-hmm. So we're as far from this version.
Stop saying that. I get so mad when you say that. Every time. He always has to point out how long ago the 80s were. And to me, it's like 20 years. And he's like, no, it's 40 years.
Yeah.
That's not a new feeling, though, because on Kate and Allie, I don't know if you remember watching the sitcom Kate and Allie with like Susan St. James and Jane Curtin, and they had that conversation often where they would go, "Well, that was like 1967. That's just like 10 years ago," and Jane Curtin would go, "No, that's 20 years ago." Just so they were having the same experience.
I know.
You're having a universal experience.
Perpetually.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I found that quotation you're talking about where Nastassja Kinski says, I sleep with all my directors, but with you it was difficult. I have no idea what that means. I don't know if it means he was not a satisfying lover.
Yeah, meaning she didn't want to sleep with him, but that's her thing that she has to do.
That's right.
For whatever reason.
I mean, I guess it's at least better than, well, you weren't my brother.
Right.
In relation to this film, that's way worse.
Such a fascinating character.
But
so the ending of the film is after John Hurd has arranged for her to be captured.
She says, "Hey, turn me into a panther. Let's get this on and turn me into a panther." Because it gives us an excuse to tie her up. And
does she want him to kill her or tie her up? Because I know she doesn't want to kill anybody else.
She says, "I want to be with my people," if I'm not mistaken.
So killed, right? Or no?
No. Just
I didn't get that.
Yeah, she says, "I want to be." If I'm not mistaken, she says, I want to be among my people." So basically, I want to be a cat. I'm tired of being a human. Now that I know this, things are complicated and weird. And
But her people are not the Panthers; they're the cat people. So
that's why I was confused. At the very end, they are the Panthers, though.
Sure, but I mean,
because they got that weird thing where they go
in the zoo.
That weird voice that goes, "Irina."
And how did she get there? That's okay. So remind me how she got. Because I know she's in the zoo.
I'll tell you, because the plan is she's going to be a panther. They're going to capture her as a panther. So for him to do that, he has to tie her up and have sex with her.
Right, have sex with her. Yeah.
And then she'll turn into a panther.
Right.
That's it.
Got that part. So she's at the zoo.
Then she's in the zoo. That's it.
Yeah, but when is she with? How does she get to be with the people, with the cat people,
Well,
with her
there's other
mother?
panthers in the zoo.
No, but I mean,
I think that's
in
what
the
Tony's
red
getting at.
fantasy zone.
Oh, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's
No, it
just
does happen.
I
just
don't know.
a cut to
If
what I
if
assume
That's
is
why-
happens,
Africa of
then I'm
sorts,
confused. I
right?
apologize.
Yeah, I was
No.
confused by the ending because I get that. Yeah, I get that he has sex with her. She turns into a panther. He puts her in the zoo, and then when she's in the red zone, I was like, and the brothers introducing her to their mother. I'm like, wait, what? So I
No,
guess she
that's
died at some point.
That's just back in
But she
Catlandia,
shows up at Catland.
right?
So how did she get there?
Movie magic. Like it's again, it's the fantasy. It's that kind of crossover fantasy.
Maybe it could very
she's
well
still
be
in
that
the
this
zoo.
is another
I
plane
think.
of reality.
In the
You
she's
think
gonna
she's still
be
in the zoo and not like dead or something? Like
Yeah.
that's
not
after
dead.
she dies.
She's in the zoo.
No,
She's
I mean
acting.
after she dies, like someday, years from now, maybe.
Her
Yeah, okay,
spirit
sure.
will
She'll
go
go
to
Panther Heaven.
Catlandia.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
That's-
I don't know. That was super confusing why she was there, but it was cool looking.
Yeah.
And then they play David Bowie. and yes. Golly, what a film. Is there anything we didn't talk about? I know we've been all over the case, but I feel like we've had
Well, I just
some
wanted to
sense.
mention a sad trivia note, and that is that the woman who plays the lady at the YMCA actually died in 9/11. She died in the plane that hit the Pentagon.
No,
Which is super sad.
that's shocking.
Yeah, this was her last movie that she did, and then she just retired from acting to go be a mom and a photographer, and then she died in 9/11.
Well, golly, that's awful.
Yeah, let me find her name so I'm not just talking about her without paying due respect. Let's see.
I do like, what we didn't. I don't think we gave enough credit to character of Female.
Oh my God, Female
played by
was
Ruby Dee.
hilarious.
Yeah, she's
Ruby
great
Dee's
though. Her interactions and how she's how we find out she's kind of keeping the secrets, and then what she says in prison, like, "Hey, you got to pretend it's a man's world," basically. Again, kind of picking up elements of the original, but also kind of it does. There's transgressive elements that perhaps get overshadowed in my opinion, more interesting transgressive elements and kind of commentary that gets overshadowed by, "Hey, sister, let's get it on because that's the only way we can just always get it on."
Yeah,
is still kind of creepy, man. Like, but the way she gets stared at on the bus and just all of these kind of how all of that's happening and all of those interactions.
It's strange to me.
And I think it would have been nice to get a little bit, even a little bit more of New Orleans in there as a. I mean, you do whatever budget you have, and there's enough set pieces, but there's some really great bits like with the cab driver who's there. She's great. But yeah, I thought the character of Male is interesting and kind of how she plays into everything was
that her name is just how they pronounce it when they saw the word female. That was the same thing with Usnavi in the Heights, where like the dad had seen the U.S. Navy ship and was like, "That's going to be my kid's name, Usnavi."
Yeah,
the one thing that's super strange. The one thing that is strange about the film, as I think about it, try to think about what the hell all of this is supposed to mean, right? And there's this all these different things going on, this animal sexuality, and there's the objectification of Nastassja Kinski. But one thing that's really odd that's missing, and maybe you would have if you had a different director, who knows, I don't know, but it occurs to me that considering that Nastassja Kinski is in theory the lead of this film, I challenge you to figure out what it is that Nastassja Kinski really wants through most of the movie. It doesn't really center her desire at all. Whatever her sexual desire is lost to us. We have no idea. Whatever it is that she wants to do with her life, no clue. There's where's she gonna work?
Well,
John Hurt gets her a job. Where's she gonna live? Malcolm McDowell tells her where to live. So
and I think that's part of it. I mean, that's part of the through line and the line I was mentioning where she goes, "Hey, pretend it's a man's world," or I can't remember. I'm sorry, I'm butchering that line.
Yeah, but I get it. Yeah, that is a thing that
kind of like, "Hey, this is how the reality." I think the difference is in the original, there's already, "Hey, I do art. This is what I do." Whereas here, her thrust seems to be finding where she fits into this world,
right?
Because she didn't fit in as an orphan. Now she's trying to discover, like, well, how do I fit in New Orleans? How do I fit into to, how do I fit in sexually? How do I fit in as a person? Can I do? But I do kind of. It was kind of jarring that she, they do more of a like. Well, I took some art classes as opposed to kind of really having her like. I've done illustration before, and so now I'm going to start that or whatever. And we don't really get that. We get this kind of. I think you're kind of hitting on it though. We get her journey is trying to find where she fits into the world of
and that journey is really not shown. That journey doesn't happen in a sense because it's all cut short by John Hurd and turning into a cat. There's and this is not per se a complaint. I'm just saying it would be interesting to center Nastassja Kinski in a movie about Nastassja Kinski. I would really love to know what the hell she wants.
Very interesting. I wanted to go back and correct myself. So it's Barry Berenson, and she was actually in the first plane to hit the towers, not the Pentagon. So yeah,
how awful.
But Barry Berenson was. Yep. Anyway, we should probably wrap up.
Yes. We should get our final thoughts. This has been so fun to discuss. I can't believe I hadn't watched this movie since the 80s. So, all right, we'll start with Miss Julia. Yes, indeed. Final thoughts. Do you love it any more than you did before, or where are you?
So yeah, I'd never seen it. I honestly, when I started talking, I forgot half of the things that we talked about, and now as we talked about, I'm like, oh yeah, I don't think I liked this movie as much as I thought I did. Because there's so many things that were just like, and it's not like we watched it a long time ago. We watched it yesterday. I just, for some reason, it was like not in the mindset of all the critical things. But yes, I do think that, again, I still believe that the performances are great. I do think that, I think though that it's not a great story. Like, I feel like as we've been talking, I feel like Lava Shark Productions or whatever it's called could do a better version of that. No, maybe not. But story-wise, script-wise, I think we could do a better script. Maybe not effects-wise, because of course they have great effects, and we don't have effect specialists in our production studio that I've imagined. But but yeah, I think so I think there's story-wise, it's a lot to be desired. But I think performance-wise, it's great casting, some really neat effects. Not as some better effects in the first movie with. Because I think sometimes lower budgets make you be more creative. So, there's some things in this film that weren't even as good as in the first film because they just had less to work with, I think. But I think part of the thing is that the director here, Paul Schrader, is that his name? Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
He regrets having called it Cat People because of comments like the one I just made, which is that people keep comparing it to the first one. It's like, oh my God, never mind. So yeah, I think, and it probably not feeling like he had to go back and do those scenes might have freed him up to do something more interesting in some places. But anyway, but I did enjoy watching it. I do think there was a few, like Tony said, a few choices that were questionable.
Cool.
But yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Tony, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, of course, the filmmakers, the cast, like it's shot really well. There's great effects. I think again the choices, especially after viewing the original and then also not having seen it, like viewing it now with just a different mindset on how I view certain movies. I think there's some really neat choices. I think change of scenery. There's a bunch of really good stuff here. Leaning into the horror aspect with some of the gore and how we approach the change and how you build suspense is really interesting. But the incest part to me overshadows a lot of that. Like it's just there's a lot of choices that just don't work as well for me, especially given the atmosphere. And it's strange too because you have a really atmospheric city to play into that, and I'm not sure if it's used some of the scenery and the way they've chosen to shoot it seems like it could just as easily be scenes from like Exorcist 3 or Prince of Darkness, as opposed to hey, okay, well, I mean, we do have let's go to the zoo and let's go to the French Quarter, but the atmosphere isn't quite there, and maybe that's not fair because you're trying to do something different and establish your own vision. And like Julia said, like, oh man, I wish I wouldn't have called it Cat People. But between the kind of just strange choices in retrospect and the way the kind of transition second, third act kind of happens, that was still kind of strange, and I'd forgotten that. It was more jarring this time, kind of looking at it through more of a reviewer's eyes, I guess. And again, perhaps it's me, like, watching a bunch of movies and then having to review them and kind of take things apart, that maybe I'm even thinking about it differently. But yeah, I think it's worth watching, and comparing. And there's again, casting is great. It's shot really well, but I don't know if it's a movie I would revisit very often. And certainly between the two, if I were going to pick one to watch, like, which cat people are you going to watch? It's going to be the original, unfortunately.
No, that makes sense.
Not as a knock against anybody who's in it, but just the vibe. I prefer that vibe, hands down. And I love 80s horror. So that's, I don't know. What do you do when there's a bunch of beautiful people and lots of nudity, and yet still stylistically, I personally prefer a black and white, much more chaste movie in a way.
I can go for both. I mean, but that's like the line in Dr. Katz where the guy describes, an overly produced Broadway show and says, "Look what it takes to bore me." Where sometimes
I don't think any part you're bored in this movie. I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, but my point is that sometimes it doesn't pay off. I agree with you completely. The actor, by the way, playing Oliver in the original was Kent Smith. So Kent Smith versus John Hurd, Simone versus Nastassja Kinski. This would have been a great movie. I just feel like the incest thing just is a misfire, just a criminal misfire that turns this film into something that's not nearly as exciting as it could be. And then you could get extra credit, like I said, for showing me a little bit about what it is the hell that this adult woman actually wants for herself. Right now, you don't. She's completely an object that all the men are projecting themselves onto. And that's just a missed opportunity. I would really like to know what the hell Nastassja Kinski wants before the last 3 minutes of the film. And it wouldn't take that much. But it could have been done anyway. But having said that, you definitely got to watch this thing, because you won't believe it until you see it.
Yeah, and it's strange to me too, now that I really think about it. Like, there's plenty of other kind of erotic thrillers that still work for me. So there's definitely not there's not a prudishness to it. But
no, I mean,
there's
Basic
something about the
Instinct
veneer of all of it.
Most famous erotic thriller
as well.
there is, and you have a really. You really do feel like Sharon Stone is leading her own life and is running the plot, So this is
And
just
it's funny that you mentioned that, because, like I said, I was looking at articles about women who regret the decisions to be nude, and Sharon Stone actually did not consent to have the money shot that everybody knows it from that film, be done that way. They told her to take her underwear off for lighting, and she did not know that they were going to show that shot, and she was really upset about it. She got really mad. So this is what I'm saying, is these things where people just think, oh well, I'm sure the actor's on board. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. So that's really important.
I should mention that Annette O'Toole weighed in about her pool scene, and she was like, "Whatever, it was just my costume."
Well, she was talking about how the filming of that scene was really cool, and that it was scary for her because she's by herself. Like they actually had a remote camera, so she's by herself. She said the whole thing was scary. The fact that she's naked is part of the scary. So she might be okay with it, but Nastassja Kinski specifically said, "Do not include any full frontal nudity shots of me." And then I think they did, right? Yeah, I'm pretty sure
Are you talking about? Are you switching back over to Sharon Stone? Or are you talking about Nastassja?
No, Nastassja Kinski, yeah, in this one as well. So that's what I'm saying. It's like all these films where people are like, nudity, whatever. It's like, I'm just thinking about the actor having to be in the situation.
I'm with you. Okay, well, fascinating. All right.
She said, let's see. Let me find. Well, okay, it's fine. Let me see where it is. And this is the same IMDb thing. It was not the breast. It was just I'm just trying to find that scene now. Explicit frontal nude scenes of Nastassja Kinski were shot. She requested of the producer that the nude footage not be included in the movie, but I don't know if they took out the specific shots she was talking about or not. So that's what I don't understand. But anyway, the point is that a lot of times they're like, okay, you can film it because that's how it has to work, whatever. But I don't want it used, and then they still use it, or they don't want to film it at all, but they get pressured into it. So I don't know. Anyway.
Well, okay, so there's problematic stuff. That's more than we can discuss at this exact moment.
But it's just a thing to keep in mind when you're thinking about nudity of films. It's like not just about nudity; it's about the people, the actual humans.
Wow. Okay. All right.
All the cats. I mean, perhaps I shouldn't make light of this, but all the cats were filmed nude, though, and they had zero
I think the
consent.
cats were probably okay with it.
Yeah.
And by the way, the cats weren't nude; they were painted black. They were actually cougars. They were actually
Oh, that's
cougars that were
true.
painted black. FYI, but that's a different.
Cue the Rolling
Anyway.
Stones. I probably shouldn't. I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
ridiculous, and I probably
No,
shouldn't
it's
make
okay.
light
It's
of
okay.
that. But
It's okay.
those things
I-
pop in my head. Like,
I
Yep.
do feel like if you want to see, I mean, there's just so much stuff you should watch. Like, if you're wondering, oh, should I watch this? I can't imagine you would listen to this conversation and not have actually watched the movie. But if
Sure
you're
you
still
would.
trying to decide, man, you got to see Malcolm McDowell pretend to be a cat. I mean, honestly, you
absolutely.
have to see this stuff. You
It's
know,
interesting.
this is a movie, like Tony is always saying, if you want to create your own stuff, go watch things that people aren't watching all the time and see what they make you think of. This
Mhm.
is an interesting movie, and I'm so glad that I watched it, even though I feel like there
Yeah.
are some crazy ass misfires in it. So
I mean, it's fascinating. It just from a point of seeing a lot of really great filmmakers, actors, and actresses, and crew. Everybody coming together, just for comparison's sake,
Yes.
on recontextualizing something. Even if you think there are some misfires, it's worth seeing how that goes.
Yeah.
That's part of that's the fascinating nature of film, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you for your final thoughts. We should get our endorsements. That concludes our discussion of Cat People and all of the Cat People movies so far. Unless you count something wild like Sleepwalkers. So, Julia, do you have anything to endorse this week? I mean, we
Oh,
watched
you
Joe
know.
Bob, we watched James Bond. I don't know what
Yeah,
you're
I'm
thinking.
definitely going to endorse the James Bond No Time to Die movie. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. I know that some people may not like it, but I think it's getting fairly decent. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell because I don't really read a lot of reviews, but just comments I've seen where it's like some people don't like it, some people like it. I liked it a lot. I thought it was really, really good. Really, there's some really sad stuff in it. There's some really beautiful stuff in it. There's a lot of fun nostalgia stuff for James Bond fans.
Yeah.
And anybody who likes Daniel Craig will enjoy this. So that's mine. I can't think of anything in particular else that I want to talk about right now. So yeah, that's it.
Very good.
I'm
Thank
looking
you.
forward to hearing what Tony talks about because he's been watching so many movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Tony, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, we did that podcast. I mean, there's so many movies that I really did enjoy at Fantastic Fest that we did. One recommendation. I think we're gonna have some more come up. I've written some reviews that we'll post. But it was nice coming back, going to Fantastic Fest. I saw some just really great stuff. Some standouts to watch for. I think we need to do Bingo Hell, which I think will be really fun. It's available now. I think Julie, I think you'd probably dig it. Although it's kind of goopy in its gore, but it's really great. Tons of cool stuff. There was a great video game documentary called Cannon Arm and Arcade Quest. A beautifully shot and poignant movie that I was not kind of prepared for because called Glass House. Phil Tippett's Mad God premiered, and that's a piece of work. Like, you're gonna engage with that piece of art. I don't know if everybody's gonna dig on it, but it is an impressive work of art. Whether or not it's your bag or not, you have to kind of engage with it as just doing that much stop motion and having a singular of a vision. And then I saw some great there was some great documentaries like This Is Guar, about the band Guar. Some movies I caught up with after the podcast we did was a movie called Zalava about a kind of superstition and how that plays into government. It's set in 1978 on the onset of the Iranian Revolution. That was a really fascinating delve into kind of village politics and superstition. I really like this action movie, Salome, from Senegal. That was really great. And I'm trying to remember where it was from. One of the other movies I saw was called Preman, and that had some really cool action sequences. Indonesia. So people have said they kind of felt it was kind of like The Raid, but I think it's different enough. It's got a way different tone, but I think they're really looking at the fight sequences, and I can totally see that, which I like. And for Jason, one of the most fascinating things I saw, and I'm not sure how we can see it again because it's called Timekeepers of Eternity.
Yeah, I really want to see this.
The creator, and I hope I'm getting this name right, Aristoteles Maragkos, has basically taken the adaptation of Langoliers.
Yes, with Bronson Pinchot.
Printed it out in black and white and remade it, put it back as an animated collage. So he'll split the scenes and there'll be paper edging, or when people pound, it's like the closest thing would be the Take On Me video, where people are pounding on the scene and you see like the paper ripples. And it's such a strange idea and execution, and it fits in. We've covered a lot of King stuff, and wow, it was just so bizarre. Like the fact you're taking, let's be honest, like very few people think of the Langoliers as like the height of King adaptations. For better or worse, no offense to the filmmakers, it's kind of gotten, it's taken its lumps as far as adaptations go. But the idea that, this is what I'm gonna take all the frames and print them out in black and white and then reassemble them into this partially animated collage featurette that or feature that is that used to be a miniseries. It's like, what? It was a miniseries, right? Like it was like a couple.
Yeah, it was
over the course of like a couple nights.
I mean, well, a couple nights, but yeah. And it's such a wonderful thing to choose, like to take something that you could license fairly cheaply. Like,
I mean, I don't know how licensed it is. That's the thing.
Well,
I don't know how you see this because
that's true.
And maybe that's a disservice to tell people, hey, there's this really cool thing you can't watch except maybe at a festival. I don't know if that's fair.
But I love the idea of taking a work that nobody is enjoying right now or using in any way and making something interesting out of it. That is really, really cool.
Because
so cool.
Because they pared down the movie. The Timekeepers of Eternity is 1 hour and 4 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So highly edited, but just the way it's put together, and that itself is an interesting thing. Not only are you making a collage, but how do you cut down this work to 1 hour and 4 minutes and choose that, and how you tell the story? Like you're recontextualizing the story elements as well. But that was one of those things where I was like, I'll check this out. And then just, I wanted to show more people just because it's such an odd idea. But I'm sure we'll be having more podcasts about, Fantastic Fest stuff because there's a lot to talk about. And some of these are going to different venues. I'm also really stoked for people to see the new Edgar Wright film, which was super good.
One Night in Soho, or
yeah. That was
we're excited to watch that because Sophia, my oldest, is a huge Whovian. So Matt Smith being in that looks really fun.
Oh, he's so good.
And then what's her name? Jason Anya. What's her name?
Taylor-Joy.
Taylor-Joy. Thank you. From Queen's Gambit. So yeah, I'm really excited about that movie.
I don't want to give away too much. This is a movie.
Well, it's pretty obvious from the trailer, kind of what's going on. At least the trailer gives you an idea of what you're supposed to think is going on.
Technically, even just like if you want to, I don't care if you're a fan of his movies or not, but if you are someone who's technically minded and just wants to see and wants to marvel at like, how did they do this shot? How did they do that shot? You can go in it with that. And again, I think it's a really well put together movie, and enjoyable, and the cast is great. But you can view this movie in a lot of different ways, and execution wise, music wise, etc. That was a really great secret screening as well. Oh yeah, another one, Julia. I thought of you in a movie called The Exorcism of God, which was, I was telling one person that it was the most aggressively perhaps Catholic movie. And the director was not, definitely grew up Catholic, but has his own kind of views of things. But until the next secret screening, which was Benedetta, which is about based on a true story about a lesbian love affair in a nunnery, and the politics involved in that.
But what was the first one called that you were talking about that you thought I would like?
The Exorcism of God. Oh, I don't know. It's horror, so I don't know if you would like it. But I was this is a movie that we might cover because it has, because we've covered so many exorcism type movies.
Right. No,
And
yeah, those are great.
there's some stuff I hadn't seen before, and I don't want to give it away,
Mhm.
but I'm not sure all of it worked in, as well. But wow, that's
Well,
another
while
one
you
of those
were
like swinging for the fences kind of movies where
Mhm.
while you were gone, Jason and I did watch Midnight Mass, and it was in fact very cool and interesting and
I
thought
need to catch
provoking.
that.
Oh, you haven't
Yeah,
watched it yet? Oh,
no,
for some
no,
reason I thought
no,
you were one of the people that was talking about it. Yeah,
no.
no, very interesting. So yeah, I think you'll enjoy that too if you like that kind of thing.
But yeah, and the fact that they did Fantastic Fest and Fantastic Fest at home, so there was a virtual component, so people
Hmm.
who either couldn't come to Austin as usual or didn't feel safe. There were basically over 2 weeks of Fantastic Fest this year, because
Hmm.
if you subscribe to the at-home component of it, I thought that
Cool.
was kind of a cool, nice way to do things for people who couldn't experience. And they did a ton of movies. Not every movie, of course, could be up on the at-home component because they were going to different festivals, or perhaps they got picked up. There's all kinds of rights issues. But they also, at the at-home component, the at-home fest, brought back a bunch of previous Fantastic Fest movies, and I hope they continue to do that, because some of them still haven't gotten distribution for whatever reason from years ago.
Yeah.
Which one from 2019. There's another one from 2011 I remember seeing from Japan, and there's movies that just haven't been on anything. Some of them not even on disc, which is kind of neat to go, hey, you can, if you weren't here for the fest, you can watch these things. And people, there's a Facebook page that called Fantastic Fest Fiends, that a friend of mine who had passed on left behind. She was the originator of it, my friend Holly, and that's kind of been one of her lasting legacies, is everybody getting together on this Facebook page and talking about films and stuff. So it was really cool to have people who had been there before go, oh yeah, well, this movie, I remember that, you should definitely check this out, and starting that discussion. So that was really cool. I know that's probably a lot of stuff, but I watched a lot of movies and spent a lot of time
Yeah.
away. So thanks for indulging me and
Well,
catching
No,
up
we're
it's
going to do a
interesting.
couple of longer reviews of just a couple of different things too, coming up soon. So it'll be cool to follow up on that. For me, I have nothing yet. I saw the same things that Julia did, and I
But
don't
did you
want
want
to
to talk about
spoil.
the oh my God, I just forgot the name of the Friday thing that you watch. The
It,
Friday night. Did you talk about
I
Greek thing?
haven't seen the second movie yet, so I'll
Yeah.
leave it up. So
Okay.
yeah. So that brings us to the end of our discussion of Cat People 1982. I am so thankful that you guys would join us. I hope everybody has a wonderful week, and I can't wait to be back next week. I don't even remember what's next, but I'm sure it will be exciting. So everyone be excellent. Tony, welcome back, and I'll talk to you
Thanks.
soon. Bye,
Cool.
everybody.
Night.
Great.
Night.
Good night.